They've stopped expressing concern and have started taking action. NATO is actively preparing for war against Russia.
I think this is important because we want to protect what we have.
At the same time, the North Atlantic Alliance no longer harbors any illusions that it can reach an agreement with the aggressor, despite the seemingly upcoming negotiations between Washington, Kyiv, and Moscow. A cold calculation shows that Russia will remain a threat regardless of any agreements.
These systems can literally be rolled out of the garages. For example, at the Luga military base, 100 kilometers from the Estonian border. Within 5 minutes, Iskander missiles can be loaded and launched in quantities that cover the entire territory of Estonia and most of Latvia.
Therefore, it was decided to push back. The redeployment of troops to NATO's northern flank and the buildup of arms on the border with Russia and Belarus are now the alliance's top priorities. We decided to find out whether this is enough to repel a potential Russian force that could invade Europe. What kind of power has NATO concentrated on its borders, and where might Putin strike first? Watch all about this right now in the new episode of Arsenal. Talks about turning Britain into radioactive ash are a thing of the distant past. Russia has finally realized that in the event of a nuclear strike, little would remain of the country. However, this does not completely eliminate the threat from the Kremlin.
The main course of action for the Russian Federation is that it is now trying to sow discord directly within the NATO bloc. The narrative being promoted is that NATO countries are not prepared for direct military confrontation with the Russian Federation and are willing to sacrifice the independence of certain countries. The primary focus is on the Baltic states and accordingly Poland. In other words, the Russians are once again counting on the tactic of so-called concessions, that is, territorial gains at the expense of the main alliance members' unwillingness to engage in direct armed confrontation.
However, the war in Ukraine has forced NATO to reassess the state of its combat readiness. In recent years, the Allies have strengthened the alliance's forward presence by establishing multinational battle groups in Bulgaria, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Estonia. They have also deployed more ships, aircraft, and troops to NATO's eastern flank. These actions demonstrate the determination and readiness of member states to defend the territory and population of the North Atlantic Alliance countries.
It is clear that the threat on Europe's eastern flank is real. They are on the border with Belarus and Russia, so they see this threat differently every day. You see recent open-source reports about Russian drones flying into the territory of Romania and Lithuania. Such incursions have become more frequent. You see sabotage operations taking place in the countries of the eastern flank and Eastern Europe. This means that Russia is increasing the challenges.
At the same time, analysts consider the Baltic states to be the weakest point of NATO's eastern flank today. According to experts' calculations, that's exactly where Putin will strike if he decides to seriously go to war with the alliance.
We are talking about the possibility of the Russian Federation implementing the so-called Suwałki scenario, that is, an attempt to break through from the territory of the Republic of Belarus to the Kaliningrad region and to build a so-called land corridor, which, according to Russian military and political circles, should connect the Republic of Belarus with the Russian Federation's enclave, the Kaliningrad region. So it would pass through the territory of Poland and several Baltic countries. And neither the NATO countries nor, accordingly, our American allies can fail to understand this.
They understand and are taking measures. The 4 northeastern battle groups in Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Estonia are under NATO command through the headquarters of the Multinational Corps Northeast in Szczecin, Poland. 2 divisional-level headquarters coordinate exercises and preparatory activities for their respective battle groups. In addition, specifically in Lithuania, NATO exercises are now held on a permanent basis, with some units rotating along the alliance's border. The border itself is being continuously reinforced with new fortifications and barriers. There is also partial mining taking place.
These measures are very effective, but only if they are backed by military forces. On their own, they won't stop anything. Based on this, the plan for creating obstacles must be integrated into the overall defense concept. Of course, the regional NATO defense plan must also be taken into account. So yes, I support such measures, but the fortifications must be covered by troops.
And those troops will be there. According to journalists from the German newspaper Welt am Sonntag, the alliance also plans to deploy another 49 combat brigades due to the potential Russian threat. Previously, NATO countries believed that 82 brigades would be sufficient, but now their number will be increased to 131. Each will consist of approximately 5,000 soldiers.
I think this is important because we want to protect what we have to defend our country. And now, having served in the army for some time, I am also ready to fight alongside my fellow soldiers and ensure the safety of our people.
By the way, the arriving troops are also appreciated by the local population of the Baltic countries, who understand that they would not be able to cope with Russia on their own. That's why they wholeheartedly welcome new NATO units and military bases. That's great. Yes, it's about security.
I feel safer. I know that the Bundeswehr is in Lithuania.
Especially Russia, so that not even the thought arises that any step could be taken towards Lithuania or NATO in general.
Moreover, the mythical threat that locals had been scared with until now has become quite real. Now they're figuring out what weapons Russia has, how far they can reach, and what kind of destruction they cause.
We see that they have Iskander missiles, which are probably the biggest direct military threat to us. They have platforms for various types of missile weapons, which can strike in the shortest possible time. As one of our sources told us, these systems can literally be rolled out of garages, for example, at the Luga military base, 100 kilometers from the Estonian border, loaded with Iskander missiles in 5 minutes, and launched in quantities that can cover the entire territory of Estonia and most of Latvia.
Obviously, these same considerations guided the relatively new NATO members, Finland and Sweden. This immediately triggered hysteria in Russia. Like, why? There's no threat at all.
In a phone conversation between the presidents of Finland and Russia, Vladimir Putin told his counterpart Sauli Niinistö that abandoning the policy of neutrality would be a mistake, since there are no security threats to the country. The president's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, previously said that Moscow does not see Finland's accession to NATO as an existential threat, but considers the alliance to be an offensive military bloc.
But realizing that persuasion wasn't working, the rhetoric changed abruptly. As if nothing had happened, territorial and religious issues suddenly emerged as well. There was also talk about protecting the Russian-speaking population.
The Russian Federation periodically raises the issue of a possible armed confrontation scenario with NATO and the new countries that have joined the bloc. Specifically, this refers to Sweden and Finland. Let's at least recall those events when the so-called map of possible territorial claims by the Russian Federation against a number of Baltic countries appeared. Moreover, it was about possible Russian control over the Swedish island of Gotland.
However, by now, any sober-minded government has long realized, if you can't defeat Russia, join those who can protect you. At the same time, Russia itself has received the exact opposite result from its aggression against Ukraine.
If Vladimir Putin hoped that as a result of his unprovoked and illegal invasion of Ukraine there would be less NATO presence on the western flank, it turned out he was completely mistaken, and NATO will only grow.
Moreover, immediately after these countries joined the alliance, all programs aimed at strengthening NATO's northern flank were instantly extended to them, along the entire line of contact with a potential adversary.
Our partners, together with our multinational corps and multinational divisions on the eastern flank of Europe, are using the latest capabilities such as HIMARS or Apache helicopters. Poland is acquiring 96 Apaches. We are helping them utilize these capabilities both at the basic level and at the unit level. We can help, and we are doing so. We conducted truly incredible exercises involving 6 NATO corps based on a scenario of a battle with the Russians in the Suwałki corridor.
At the same time, there are still opponents of militarizing their countries among NATO members. It is still extremely difficult for democratic regimes to explain to voters why humanitarian programs should be replaced with military ones.
These are rather complex and intricate debates that are currently unfolding between various distinct political groups and their respective factions, whose differing positions and perspectives diverge significantly regarding the potential and looming threat of an impending war in the foreseeable and immediate future. Some political groups firmly believe that we cannot simply and immediately redirect all significant financial flows from crucial humanitarian, vital social, and essential economic programs to defense spending. Other political groups and politicians are trying to explain that the threat already exists.
However, the understanding that life cannot go on as before is slowly but surely setting in. Now, the main thing is to have enough time before the real threat materializes.
Various dates are being mentioned. These include, of course, 2026 and later dates as well. So accordingly, NATO countries, specifically the closest neighbors, the countries bordering the Russian Federation or nearby neighbors, are trying to replenish their arsenals with the types of weapons that will allow them to actively counter possible Russian aggression.
Ukraine plays a crucial role today in deterring Russia from attacking NATO. After all, as long as the Ukrainian armed forces are holding back the enemy, Putin simply doesn't have any additional resources for aggression in Europe.
First of all, the war in Ukraine needs to end or be halted in some way with some kind of outcome, and only then can troops be redeployed from there, because naturally recruiting new soldiers takes quite a long time. Otherwise, in principle, it would probably take 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Because there are quite capable combat units on the front in Ukraine, so all that's needed is simply to transfer them. That won't take much time. And then rearm them somehow, reorganize them.
But fortunately for everyone, the defense forces are still holding on, and Europe still has time to rearm its units. Now it seems Washington is also ready for a potential confrontation with Moscow.
The US armed forces are ready. I can tell you, our NATO partners and allies are ready. And we are simply continuing to build up our capabilities.
Did you like this video? Then be absolutely sure to give this video a well-deserved like and also subscribe to our official Arsenal channel for all the latest updates and exclusive content. The direct link to our channel is conveniently located in the description box just below this very video.